people's financial livelihoods today actually require 2 or 3 jobs to live the life that they want. But you have this new generation that is willing to have a lot less if they don't have to work as hard for it. And so there's a huge change in the game right now.
Kris, can we take a trip down memory lane for a second?
Why does that frighten me so much?
Because in 2014, when I first started with you, we'd do these presentations up at your house. You'd invite a ton of people into your home and you'd talk to them about the MLM that you were running at the time.
Yes.
Do you remember those days?
Yes, very much.
Does this look familiar?
Wow. Create, manage, protect, and grow wealth. So that gives me a little bit of PTSD.
So for those listening, I'm showing Kris some slides that he used to use when he was talking to people about financial freedom.
Yeah. That smells like an MLM. It looks like an MLM.
Okay. Talk to me about these 3 images here.
Earned income, net worth, residual income. And the whole notion is around this idea that if you trade your time for money, you're never going to make it. And if all you do is accumulate assets, you're never going to grow them big enough. You have to figure out how to residualize your money. You get your money working for you, and it has to create meaning for you, right? Like a 401k, an IRA doesn't produce money for you today that benefit you. So you look for investments that actually give you something that means something today. You can grow more dynamically and velocitize that.
Right. And I remember you used to ask people, you'd be like, would you rather be a millionaire on paper, have net worth of $1 million?
Yes.
Or
what was
$4,000 residual income?
$4,000 a month residual income.
Well, $3,800 is what the example was that you give. A teacher who also has some residual income. And you'd be like, which would you rather have? And what would most people say?
They would say, I want the $1 million.
Right. And what would you tell them?
If you take $1 million and you give it to a financial planner earning 3%, you could pretty much get that thing popping out $2,600 a month. So in other words, everyone thinks they're going to feel good when they have $1 million in the bank. But the real question is, can you turn the money into something meaningful? Can you actually have it mean something so you don't just consume it? Because if you had $1 million and you just consumed it, you'd buy stuff and then it'd be gone. And then you'd say, man, I wish I could do that over and actually get my money working for me.
So today I wanted to talk to you about how to create your perfect life through residual income, or what people call passive income.
Yeah, mailbox money. Like literally, how do I set my money up so that it is just producing
and giving back constantly. And I remember, so this is the real slide that I was excited to talk about today, because this inspired me. Because most people don't know that residual money exists. I guess I shouldn't say most. A lot of people don't
and
know.
on the slide, if you can't see it, it says that there's different ways to produce through leverage a residual income. It could be real estate, business, alternative investments. It could be intellectual property. And so it was
Can we talk about each of these?
Yeah.
Because you have all of these, right? Like people think of you as a real estate guy.
Yeah, but
really...
So I have ownership in over 100 different businesses. And I love putting my money to work in things that do one of 3 categories. Actually, these days I care about 3 categories. Because listen, let's just say that your needs are $100,000 a year. If your investments are producing over $100,000 a year, you have the first opportunity of freedom. And that is that you don't have to work unless you want to. There's a lot of people that will actually tell you that they like their career. Most don't, but some do. And even if they do like their career, I ask them, I'm like, so you're telling me that if you were financially free, you would work 40, 50 hours a week? And then there's this sheepish smile that comes across from them. I'm like, well, I'd probably work 10 or 20 hours a week. I'm like, yeah, that's the mindset of a person that is so trapped in their own thinking that they don't know how to envision a different life outside of what they've been living. Even if you like what you do, many people would probably minimize it to create more balance in their life. I mean, let's be honest for a moment. Do people really want to work 40 or 50 hours a week? Some do.
85% of people don't. I think the last Gallup report said something like that, 80%.
Yeah, the majority of people, if they could work less and maintain the standard of living, most would choose that path. And that's not an expression that they're lazy. It's an expression that they are prostitutes. They spend their time to get a check that they wish they didn't have to do the work to get. And so if all of a sudden they could work less and earn the same amount of money, they're not lazy. they would just do different things. We have other preferences. And I think that we're in the process of breaking out of some really old molds. Like, look at the generation or two prior. Like, well, the only way you're going to get anywhere is through really hard work. It's the rancher mentality, right? It's like, it's got to be hard, and you trade your time for money and don't complain about it and work 90 to 100 hours, right? And then they make fun of the younger generations that literally expects more for less. And now you look at Gen Z and they're like, college? What's that? I'm going to go be my own boss. And not because I want to work 40, 50 hours a week. It's because technology affords a smarter, more intelligent way. And I assume that I'm going to still be able to create my lifestyle with a lot less. And I think that people's financial livelihoods today actually require 2 or 3 jobs to live the life that they want. But you have this new generation that is willing to have a lot less if they don't have to work as hard for it. And so there's a huge change in the game right now.
Okay, so you totally blew my mind when I first watched this presentation. And even though it had a little bit of an MLM vibe to it, this idea of stop trading time for money and get a residual income, it was very new to me. And I loved the 4 ways you listed.
Yeah.
So if someone was starting out, just out of college, first job, say it's paying $30,000 a year.
Let's say 55, since that's the current average.
Perfect. Take this person, they say, okay, I want to start building a residual income. Which of these 4 that you list would you tell them to start with? Real estate, business, by other investments, I'm assuming you mean IRAs, 401ks, stocks.
Well, there's other ways to make money in owning things that isn't necessarily owning businesses too, right?
Okay.
But I actually think that it's the wrong question. I don't think it's what should you start investing in. I think the right question is, how are you going to put yourself in a financial position that you can invest? In other words, prior to college, you were worth $15 an hour. Post-college, maybe you're now worth $30, $40, $50 an hour. And what most people do is they'll make the first financial mistake. They will increase their standard of living because they're young. They've never done this before. They have no roadmap. They're like, come on, why shouldn't I buy a house? Why wouldn't I want to drive a nice car? And so they increase their standard of living, and that's the first mistake. They acquire liabilities that now commit them to a job that starts feeling a little bit like slavery. It's like, if I don't work, I don't have the freedom that I once had. If I don't work, I can't pay my bills. My credit will get ruined. I'll default. I could go into bankruptcy. So people trap themselves because they are, honestly, this will always be true. Rich people have a sense of how to delay gratification when it is financially worthwhile. And people that are living in your day-to-day consumerism, they don't know how to do that. And they complain if their package doesn't arrive in 42 or 24 hours. Now we're going to habituate a society that wants that they'll measure it in the hours. Like, I ordered it this morning. It didn't come by dinner. Like, what a crazy world we live in where we have that level of expectation. And so the first problem to solve is, how do I have money to make money? Because it takes money to make money, whether yours or someone else's. And in the beginning, you're not going to dare use someone else's. You're going to be terrified. You're going to use your own money. And if you're living check to check, you don't have anything to invest, which means rule number 1 is when you start making good money, don't increase your lifestyle very much. And you need to prioritize setting money aside, paying yourself first. And I always tell people, if every time I say this, it gets such a negative reaction. So I'll just get it out of the way. If you're not saving $50,000 each year, then how are you going to invest your money to make millions and millions and millions of dollars? And that thought is designed to mentally stretch people into challenging, well, I'm saving 10% of my income. That's $5,000 a year. Isn't that enough? I'm like, I don't know. It depends. Do you want a 40-year game plan or do you want a 5-year game plan? If you want a short horizon game plan, you better find a way to live off of a lot less. And it's not about reinforcing frugality. It's not about reinforcing having less. It's not about becoming a miserly, negative-minded penny pincher that doesn't believe they can have nice things. You're doing something different. You're lavishly spending money on investments that are designed to work for you. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say there was an investment. Let's not talk about what it is. Let's just say that you could put, let me grab it. I got 10 grand. I got $10,000 of cash. I worked my butt off to save up this 10 grand. Let's say that you could put this somewhere and you could earn 100% a year on your money. So if I put in 10 grand, I will get 10 grand every single year. and you can put in any amount. Would you put in $1,000 of your $10,000 to make 100% a year on it? How much would you put up?
I mean, as much as you can, right?
Hence, you need to save more than you are. You need to have a very aggressive saving strategy so that in 5 years you can have anything you want. Because that's what I did. I didn't own a single nice luxury thing for the first 5 years. And for the last 15 years now, I've lived in mansions. Like I'm booking a trip in a couple months on my private jet to the Galapagos, and we are renting a yacht for 8 days so I can take my kids and my wife around and literally see some of the weird, funkiest endemic animals on the planet to this part of the world. This is where Charles Darwin developed his whole theory, and there's research centers out there. It'll be tropical, beautiful. It's like 82 degrees all year round, and we are renting a nice yacht. Like this is a beautiful house on the water, and that thing costs a lot of money. Why do I have the ability to do that and not care about the money at all? That for the amount that I am renting that for a week, I could go buy houses. So why am I doing the yacht? It's because there's actually 3 phases. And I want to share this before we get into the what. The first phase of life is you have to become an aggressive saver, but not to develop a money disorder. You see, there's a money disorder when you're so good at saving that you don't invest it. You're saving it for the sake of accumulation, and you don't know how to live it up. You don't know how to enjoy your life. So you're missing out on times, memories that you could be creating. You only want to stay in this phase for a certain period of time. And as soon as you get into it, the moment you have an investable denomination, then you enter the second phase, professional investor. Yep, everyone's got to be an investor on the side outside of your career, which means you have to become a master of money. I am a financial genius that knows how to invest my money, and I'm not talking about 401ks and IRAs and single-digit ROI garbage, financial planner, CPA stuff. I'm talking about real investments that produce double, triple, and quadruple ROI. So phase 1, you have to become an aggressive saver. Phase 2, as quickly as possible, you want to become a professional investor. And then the third phase is when your investments are spinning off lots of money, more than your needs, then you need to actually learn the art of reallocating your resources by being a really intelligent spender. And when I say spender, I don't mean living it up in crazy consumerism. I mean, what will create memories? What will create value? What are the things that you want to do with your life that will create enough meaning where you can look back and say, no regrets, I lived the most amazing life. That's what I'm striving for. Those are the 3 phases we're just not taught.
Okay, I love these 3 phases. And honestly, I think most people would follow them. It's jumping between the phases. Like, let's get into the nitty gritty, Kris. How do you do it? If you're on that saving phase, so your example, $50,000 a year. I'm saving what I can, and I can only save $5,000 a year.
Got it. So then
how do I save? How do I get to the point where I can save $50,000?
Well, you have to understand that you have to evaluate all the different investments that are out there from 2 perspectives. The first one is, what is the investment's ROI? Like, what will it give me? But the second one is, what is the investable denomination? Like, I can get into crypto for $10.
Right. And a lot of people are playing that game.
Right. And they play in that game because what they're really saying is, well, maybe they really like it, but part of what they're saying is, I don't got millions. I'm hoping
the barrier to entry is really low.
The barrier of entry is really low. You know, if you had $5,000, I used less than $5,000 and bought my first house with a 3% down payment.
Okay.
Those same things exist today. Go buy a smart investment instead of a dream house, right? Forgo the dream house, buy a smart investment, delay the gratification. First house my wife and I bought, we could have bought $100,000 nicer home. My buddy at the same time that had the same income bought a beautiful home on the hill, still lives in that home today. That was many mansions ago for me. And what he did is he was buying a house like most people do. It's like, I'm buying something for my family. And I said, I'm buying an investment.
So you bought a primary, but it was...
Yeah, but think about it. Normally, you got to put a 20% down payment when you buy an investment property. You get this really cool exemption every time you buy a house that you're going to live in. It's a 3% down payment. So even in our overinflated market, 3% on a $300,000 house, which is available and out there unless you're living in Boston or Massachusetts or, LA or Seattle or something like that. $300,000 can get you an entry-level house. $200,000 in most markets, Midwest, et cetera, can get you a really nice entry-level house. 3% down payment, there's going to be between $5,000 and $10,000. So low barrier of entry for the next 7 years, really high upside. I was just on the phone with a woman that like bought an investment property 2 years ago in Austin, Texas. And she said, Kris, my house has gone up $200,000. What should I do? And I said, well, you should sell it and go buy 4 more. She says, I don't know. The market's still going up. I said, stop acting like such a novice. Did this house treat you well? She's like, yeah. I was like, do you see how my explanation of the market, it's likely going to still treating you well? Yeah. I said, great. Do you want your next $100,000 of gain to be on 1 home or 4? Do the math. 4 homes at $100,000 is $400,000. Another $100,000 on 1 house is $100,000. Everyone has experienced huge appreciation in the last 2 years, and everyone should ask themselves,
how can I
I wish I could go back in time 2 years and go buy a lot more real estate, right? So what I'm saying is that sub $10,000 decision can spawn in this market over a few years, $100,000 of equity that you can either sell, refinance, and invest into other stuff. And now you're going to get greater diversification.
Okay. At what stage should someone start playing in the business world? Because I think most people feel like, oh, one day maybe I could afford a McDonald's franchise and spend $1 million and buy a business.
Or 2.
Yeah, 2 million.
Yeah.
But that's not what you would do.
No. So I don't think it's appropriate to say, well, it's real estate first and business second.
Okay.
I actually think that it comes down to the temperament of the person. So I got a private mastermind called Financial Genius, and I've got a dozen of my financial mentors, people like Roland Frazier I'm business partners with. He's had 1,000 business exits and mergers and acquisitions. Business partners with Joseph McClendon that teaches financial psychology with Tony Robbins for the last 30 years. Dolph DeRoos, #1 guy in commercial, or Robert G. Allen, the guy with 50 no money down real estate strategies. So whether it's business or real estate, I have 25 of my mentors in this mastermind. I basically bring them on every week, most weeks, and then I teach people about the game of money so that they experience all verticals. Right. Now, the reason why I believe you should understand all money verticals, meaning, it could be franchises, it could be life insurance, it could be this aspect of real estate, it could be this type of business, is because eventually you're going to find the vertical that really speaks to your soul. But if all you do is say, well, I've been watching Kris Krohn's YouTube videos forever on real estate, so real estate is the only way. I'm like, well, if you look at my portfolio, you will see that I don't believe what you just said. It just looks like that. So in other words, we're financially very narrowly educated. And I think that the place someone should start is where they feel enough positive juju that they're going to take the time necessary to fully investigate it. I think it's really important that you start in the right place. So it could be real estate, it could be business. And so someone's maybe more entrepreneurial, just understand that when I say invest in business, I don't mean start business.
Okay.
I mean, I want to own pieces of very successful businesses, or I want to put money behind businesses that are growing leaps and bounds. And in most of these situations, I'm not the operator. I'm just an owner, because that means passive. My money works for me.
So how do you feel about side hustles then?
I love side hustles. I think that it is a simple, smart way for someone to wrangle a couple $1,000s a month to tens of thousands of dollars a month. So small things can become really dynamic, big things. And I think it's important for everyone to have an entrepreneurial experience, because how can you become a master of money unless you understand business? Something literally as dumb as my friend, his daughter charges people, it was like $3 or $4 a week to make sure that their cans in this older community, that they go out to the curb, and after the trash gets taken out, they come back. Oh, they got green cans and blue cans. Now, for this older generation that just doesn't want to deal with that anymore.
Oh man, I'd pay $3.
She's bringing in an average of $14 a month. And if you think about the few minutes it takes to do that job, she now has dozens of customers in the neighborhood, and she has real money coming in. And she has enough money that actually it's her brother that started it. Brother gave it up to her, and that's where he made a mistake. He should have said, hey, I'm going to pay you $15 an hour as a 13-year-old to do this. So think about that. That's just literally 1 hour a week, and I'll pay you $15. She would have said yes, and he could have pocketed all the money. He just gave it up.
So okay. I wanted to get
I want you to have, my children have to learn, my children have these opportunities, and I teach them that step 1 is to be the artist. Step 2 is to become the manager. Step 3 is to become the owner.
Okay. Walk me through this process, because I think most people get stuck in a side hustle where it just becomes a second job.
It does, because
how do you scale it?
They treat it like a job. Let me give you an example. People buy my books every day. And I've chosen, instead of using a fulfillment center, to have my team every month ship books to my house. We have a shipping area. And for the last 3 years, my daughter basically has to print labels, take the packaging slips, put the books inside, and then she has to use her muscles to haul books up and downstairs. Get them in the back of the car, and 3 times a week, make sure that mom takes her to the post office. Now, I don't need to do this. I could pay a fulfillment company 50 cents to do this. We pay my daughter, we started out at a quarter, now it's 35 cents a book. My daughter has $6,000 in the bank from having done this. And this last year, she said, Dad, I'm working on getting my license. I'm doing dance. I'm doing more Taekwondo. I'm working on my second degree black belt. I just don't know if I want to spend an hour a day doing books anymore. She said, what can I do? I said, let me show you what to do. You've got 3 younger siblings. 2 of the 3 would like to actually work in the business. They're jealous of the money you make. What you're going to do is you're going to pay a nickel for every time they bring books downstairs and a nickel every time they bring it upstairs. You're going to pay a nickel when they stuff it, and then you're going to pay a nickel when they print and put the label on it. Now that's 4 movements. It's 20 cents of 35 cents. I said, if you're the manager, you get paid the 35 cents and you divvy out the 20 cents. So this is a 40% margin business. 60% of the money that comes in goes to your 2 other helpers that are now doing 90% of the work. Your job is to remind them to do the work, make sure that mom gets it off. But outside of that, keep them happy, keep your employees happy. So now my 10 and 12-year-old, they're thrilled because they're making hundreds of dollars. She's now making roughly the equivalent, 40%, right?
Yeah.
And it was all because I'm teaching her that you go from artist to manager. And really now she's going to become the owner. The owner doesn't do work. The owner establishes a system and creates an opportunity, and then allows others to do the work, and any money that's left over, the owner gets. So one of my rules is you own things, you don't operate things.
So the downside of ownership is the liability associated with it. Because I can tell you when a book doesn't go out the door, we don't contact Daniel or Libby.
Yep,
we contact Lisa
her
and say,
butt
where's
is
your
on
quality
the line.
control?
Yep.
So it's kind of the trade-off you do. And I think, why don't most people graduate to that? Now we're playing conjecture, but you've had a lot of experience.
Dude, I
with
spent
people.
a decade in business before someone said you're supposed to own, not operate. Keith Cunningham, who's really well known in the accounting space, teaches business, has a 4-day MBA program I went through years ago. And he said, Kris, operators get tired.
Yeah, they do.
Owners get rich. And I was like, crap. On the one hand, I tell people ownership is overrated when it comes to owning things. I like to control things. When it comes to business, I want to own business, but I want other people to control them.
Okay. Last thing I want to talk about, intellectual property as an investment.
I write books. I've got courses.
Tell how this works.
Well, like, for example, the first 25 homes I bought was on a system in real estate called Lease Option. I know how to buy and sell homes for little to no money whatsoever. And I also know how to get 200% more money out of a property than just doing a straight rental. So Lease Option is, sometimes you call it rent to own. And it basically is an option to purchase the property from the tenant that's there. They're basically saying, I don't want to be that transitory tenant that's here for a year or 2, and then we're going to move on. They're saying, we'd like to establish some roots and actually maybe buy this house. So I developed a whole system on how to do that the right way. And I brought some nuance to the market that nobody has. For example, when I establish a purchase price, I don't establish it at the time of purchase. I actually say that an appraisal will determine that, and then we'll deduct any credits that you've gotten along the way. So created the system, filmed a course. I have people today that will pay $500, $1,000, $2,000 for different versions of access. They'll then get they'll get $10,000 in contracts and tools and resources and a whole community access to my coaches. And then they're going to go out and do real estate. And I've got guys that are out there that are doing deal after deal after deal. And if you think about what I had to pay to develop this whole thing and the fact that someone can access it for a little $500 is crazy. Yeah. Well, I have a team that runs that whole business and makes that available. And it's a high margin business. And so, I'd say probably 70% of the money on that intellectual property goes to me after that product is sold. And then we get to just create a really valuable service. So intellectual property is definitely a real game. It's not a game everyone should pursue because it's a game for creators. And in life, you have two types of people when it comes to business. You have those that create structure and you have those that implement structure. So the difference is a creator is the one that says, I'm the seed capital, I'm the seed idea. I'm going to bring the seed to plant it in the ground, grow a money tree, and then actually get it to the point where we can harvest some money. So that is a creator. And some people feel called as entrepreneurs to create business. Rarely after they create it and get it going, do they want to continue doing the business as a long-term operator. They would rather go to the next creation. This is a description of me. This is why intellectual property works really, really well.
Yeah.
I also love to employ people to say, I created it, it works, we proved it out, now go run it. Improve it, make it gooder. The other type of person is the one that says, yeah, I'm not really your creative novel test build from the bottom up, but you give me like a franchise, you give me something that has a 91% chance of success because someone else went through the first 2 years of mayhem to figure out the do's and don'ts and how to market and how to build it. I'll step in and not only operate that, but then hand that off to someone else and become the owner of that. I have success in both of those fields, and I think people have to properly diagnose who they are. That helps determine where you get in the game.
Yeah.
Do I think also that everyone should be sitting in multiple games? Diversification is what's going to create ultimate protection. 90% of all asset classes in your lifetime will go to near zero. So I like to be well diversified. At the same time, if you invent a wheel, take over a wheel, reinvent a wheel and get it very productive, then you have an obligation to do as much as you can within that wheelhouse, which means I bought a property. I figured out how to get a 25 to 50% annual return on my money. Let's go do 1,000 more. In other words, if it's working and it's scalable, why ditch something that's working to say, let's just see if I can create another new scalable thing and see how that goes. Don't do that. Maximize the one or set someone up who will, and then do both. It's not one or the other.
Back in 2014, when you did that presentation, one of the things you said that stuck with me to this day was this concept of do the work once and have it continue to pay you
for the rest of your life.
How much of your monthly income, annual income, Kris, comes from work you did a long time ago?
The majority of it.
Break that down for us if you can. And I know you're not going to share specific numbers, but generally.
But if I can't work once and keep getting paid, generally, I'll say no.
Okay.
So here's where most people are at. Hey, I'm worth $50 an hour and I'm going to give you 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they get a raise or they start a company, they figure out how to trade their time at $100 an hour, and then they're going to work 40 hours a week. You're still trapped in the game of arbitraging time for money. Mm-hmm. Even if the time becomes more valuable, that can sometimes set you up for a bigger trap. Real freedom only comes when you can walk away and still get paid.
Yeah.
And so
Hold on. I feel like we should just emphasize that. Real freedom only comes when you can walk away and still get paid.
Yeah. So I would say that the majority of the income that I'm enjoying in my life comes from work that has been done years and years and years ago. And but then again, I'm a long player. I'm not. I believe that delaying gratification, like we started this whole conversation with, is paramount to determining how successful you're going to be. Because if you're only playing the short game of, well, how much money can I make this month? I got bills to pay. If you never get out of that, you're doomed. Like you're going to be stuck in a game where your time can become more valuable, but you'll never reclaim time. And in the end, financial freedom is a factor of two things. It's all the money in the world without time sucks. That's no freedom. And all the time in the world without money, that sucks. That's no freedom. Real freedom is when you have all of the options and resources and the time to execute them. So you need both.